Welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust, and Transparency. Today I wanted to dedicate this video to how you as an individual, independent property investor can put your best foot forward and beat the buyer's agent to the cream of the cake, which is the property purchase. Hello as well to all the buyer's agents out there that saw the title of this episode and thought, I'm going to click on this one to see what he suggests and try to write a LinkedIn status to counter it. But I look forward to reading those statuses. Now, this particular idea for the episode come from my YouTube channel, from someone with the someone with the handle name as Vexus V8. I'm not too sure who that is or what the deal is, but I'll read you guys out the question just in case you haven't been in the comment section and picked it up. I'm going to go through 6 points that I believe are extremely crucial for you and that you can use for your advantage to be able to secure that property, because at the moment it is essentially a game of versing the buyer's agent. So the question reads like this. As context, the video was me revisiting a deal review on a property that I said, it looks like it's got major structural cracks. Anyway, the property sold for 10-20% above market value, and it was bought by a buyer's agent who just come in and overpaid for it. There's comps on the street, on the same side of the street, same type of houses in the last weeks and months that are between $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 cheaper at like a $500,000 price point. You might think the market's moving that quick. I would say it's an overpay, especially for a house that has large structural issues that is going to require some work. Usually, if that is the case, you need to get that for below market value because you need to put time, effort, energy, and money into it to repair that house to get it up to market value. However, the comment reads, rightly or not, this has set a new baseline for that street, and prices will be at or north of this now in Corio. I'm not sure how to say it again. The BA and selling agents are the real winners here. If BAs are doing the SAs, if the BAs are doing the selling agents a favor and jacking up prices like that, us non-BA buyers will struggle to compete. Putting myself in the shoes of the selling agents, I will prefer to sell to BAs all day and night because I will likely get the best price possible. Where do you see the level playing field between normal buyers and buyers agents nowadays? Now, first and foremost, I think what's very important to note, and Corio, however you say it, is a perfect example. If you look at the data on that particular if you look at the data in that particular suburb, like as I said in my response, it is extremely unaffordable, especially at that price point. It's got a 1 URSAD, 40% are renters in that market. You have a vacancy rate that's climbing, and a lot of the data doesn't look great here in Corio. However, there's obviously a lot of interest, and as you can see, from buyers agents. Now, for me, one thing that I will tell you guys as very, very common knowledge as someone that is in the property industry is that by the time you've read about it on forums, on property chat, by the time you've heard it in a podcast, it may be too late. Think of it this way, and I've said this previously on my channel, is that if I'm a buyer's agent, let's just say I'm a buyer's agent and I've got 20 clients a month, right? And all those clients I'm buying in 2 or 3 suburbs for. Do you think I am dumb enough? Potentially there could be some, but do you think I'm dumb enough to go out and say, I'm buying in X suburb for my clients, knowing that I need to service 5-10 clients a month into that suburb? Do you think me saying that on a podcast and then inviting my audience, who I know is property investors, who I know is other buyers agents out there, to go, oh, Dave's buying in that suburb. You know what? I'm ready to go. I'm going to go look in there. Do you think they actually do that and invite everyone into that suburb? Because that would create more competition for them and that would make their job harder. Think about it. If it goes out to 10,000 people, you even have 1% of people that are ready to go and invest going to jump into that market, then you've doubled the amount of people that you're then competing with. There might only be 10 properties a month. Now you're competing with another, 10, 20, 50, 100 people on those properties. That's not the case, and that's not the play here. The play here is a lot of those buyers agents. That's why we don't have buyers agents on the Everything Property podcast. Is they can come in and say, that, but just know when they do, what they're doing is setting the people that are a little bit lazy on their research, that don't know the data fully, into those areas where they've already bought for their clients and they've already exited. Now, when they exit that and they go, oh, we no longer buy there because the prices have increased, it doesn't make sense for our clients, we're going to shop elsewhere. But then they send the crumbs out there to the investor community, because what happens? Everyone hears that these buyers agents are buying there, gravitates towards there, try to buy. You've got more buyers agents and more investors trying to buy there. What does that do to prices? It pushes prices up, but they've already had their clients in there, right? They've already had their clients in there before all that. So they're basically setting you guys up to say, oh yeah, this is a really good market. Boom, you get in there. It's too late. They've already set up all their clients, and anything on top, the cream on top, is what pushes that short-term bump. And a lot of these markets that I'm seeing at the moment, there is a lot of buying activity, but it is by the wrong person. The buyer activity is very heavily investors. Now, how can I tell that? Well, have a look at the data and think of it this way. If the days on market is coming down, for example, it tells me that things are selling quicker. But if vacancy rates are increasing, it's telling me what? It's telling me that the market isn't really absorbing. In that particular instance, there's obviously more data points, but short example, it's telling me that the market isn't absorbing the stock that is being bought. And now, why would vacancy rates increase? It's because the people that are buying those houses aren't living in them. They're putting them up for rent. So you will have, and Corio will have that growth, right? We'll have that growth because you get investors, you get buyers agents like that willing to overpay and get into those markets, right? You'll see that short-term growth, but that's all you will see. You don't have the fundamentals there of a long-term play. Now, if you're going to try to get into this for a short-term pump and dump, I've done videos on it before. You need to know your numbers, because once you factor in those purchasing costs that you can't get a refund on, think LMI, think stamp duty, legals and all that kind of stuff, and then your selling costs, CGT, you've got agent fees, advertising, all that kind of stuff. Once you take that out, it doesn't make it a really great option in a short-term pump of what you'd see in that particular market. That market might go up to 650 and plateau at 650, but once you take out all those costs that I've said and your deposit, you probably haven't made as much money as you think. And so that probably leads into, now that you know how it works, it's probably important to have a think about and lead in with the first point that you can do to give yourself a better position than the buyer's agents. And that is being able to read, interpret data and spot the warm spots before they become hotspots, because the hotspots are the Corios of the world. Those are the hotspots that you will get severe BA competition in. If you know how to read, understand, and interpret data, it doesn't just, if you look at property data, it doesn't just change overnight. Vacancy rates, completely go one way to the other. Growth rate goes one way to the other. Days on market goes one way to the other. It happens gradually over time. So if you can get to and find those areas where that trend is happening, and you can be able to observe and interpret that data, you can get there early. And now you might forego upfront capital growth in a short-term time frame. However, you've gotten in so early that will make up for it on the back end when the buyer's agents come in there and they start overpaying. Once you get an understanding from the real estate agent and you've looked at it for long enough, that the buyer's agents are coming over multiple times and overpaying again and again, it's a warm spot. It's probably done, and it's a good opportunity to look elsewhere. We've got members of the course that are buying in areas that aren't Melbourne, that aren't Darwin, that the data looks fantastic for. Now, there is no secret property chat about this. It is learning how to review the data. It is a systematic process. It is interpretation of the data as the hashtag methodology is constructing that narrative and seeing that trend of where those suburbs are heading. And I won't come out and say just yet where they are, but I'll wait for us to have that uptick before and have those runs on the board. But I know there's people that are very early in a lot of really great markets. The market fundamentals are there. The affordability is there. It's got a lot of great things happening for those markets have a lot of great things happening for it. So if you're trying to buy now and you're getting priced up by buyers agents, it is, in my understanding, and how you can beat those buyers agents is drill down and be educated on data interpretation so that you could pick up the warm spots before they become the hot spots. If it's already a hot spot, you've missed it. If you're hearing it on a podcast, that's why when we do a podcast with Matt, we do it a little bit different to people. We don't come out and go, this is the area that you need to buy in. We do it state by state, and we do a bit of a layering process and see what comes up. And if you've ever downloaded on Everything Property any of our suburb lists, you know they're quite an extensive list, because I'm not going to give you 3 suburbs, because depending on what your brief is will depend on those last couple of data points that you're going to put in that are going to consolidate that list. So by the time you've heard about it, it is, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's probably too late. Now, the second thing that you guys can do to position yourself above or get those deals before buyers agents, and I'll use my own current last 2 acquisitions, last 2 development sites I bought. Both of them were off-market, deceased estates. Both of those houses that I bought had never been for sale before on realestate.com, on any of those portals. There's no photos online, nothing. The only reason that I got those particular deals was because of the relationship that I had with the agent. Now, I'm like you guys. I've got 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, like every other buyer's agent, except I do have a full brain. And it is as simple as frequency builds trust. You need to build out a relationship with the agent. You need to build some trust. You need to really think about this in a strategic way too. Is agents are normal people. You know, everyone wants something. Everyone is in it for themselves. You know, do the research into those agents that you're working with, what they sell, how fast do they sell it, what type of operator are they, you know, what can you pick up, and how can you, there's some things that I probably won't go into that we have in our course, but, you know, if you studied a person and you said, I need to befriend this person, and I told you that there's a $500,000 bet on it, the cost of a house, and you took that time to do that research, I think you'd be able to build that relationship. And it's not about, you know, I called agents one week, I got nothing. You need to be in there for 4, 6, 8 weeks to be able to build that relationship, to have that trust, to have that rapport with the agent. You know, even if they're selling to other buyers, oh, look, congrats, look, oh, that looks a bit over, you sell that to a buyer's agent. Yeah, I did. You need to be able to build up rapport. That is not a skill that is only allowed to be attainable by a buyer's agent. You can become friends with anyone. If you're not a personable people, that's when you got to look at books. That's when you got to look at podcasts. That's when you got to look at the art of the conversation to be able to build that relationship with that person, because you can do it with anyone. You can, out there watching this video, I mean, I feel like I've been building up a friendship with some of the people in the comments section of my videos, but building rapport with that agency and building a relationship, you want to be top of mind and touch pointing with that agent frequently so that when they have that call for the listing presentation, on the way back after the owner or the vendor has signed that agency agreement, they go, "Hey Dave, man, I know we spoke the other day, and I have one. I just signed an agency agreement for. This is the deal on the vendor. This is the deal on the. If you can come in at blah blah blah, I think we can get it over the line." So the number 2 point that you guys can do and to get ahead of any buyer's agent is going to be building that relationship with the agent. It's as simple as that. That's what the buyer's agents try to do. I see the big ones even implement, touch points with buyer's agents, all that kind of shit. That would lead into number 3. And the third thing that you can do to increase your chances of getting those off-market deals is, and you'll never hear a buyer's agent say this, and you'll never see it anywhere, but not every real estate agent likes to work with buyer's agents. I know this for a fact, and I have spoken to so many real estate agents. I've even spoken to real estate agents in suburbs and regions where they don't like working with buyer's agents. The way that you need to address that, and you need to ask those questions up front if they're working with buyer's agents, however they've been, and you need to get a bit of an understanding around what their position is on buyer's agents. Now, you're going to get the agents that there are some agents that will send everything to the buyer's agents. There are some that don't like them. There are some that are still 50-50. So you need to ask the right questions. You need to dig a little deeper, and you need to find those agents that you can work with. I've even heard stories of agents calling some buyers agents the toilet because they catch all the shit. No matter what they get thrown, they catch absolutely all the shit. So some agents will literally flick absolutely anything to the buyers agents out there, and what you got to understand is some of them won't like that. And that probably leads into not only the pain points, but also the terms and the positioning. And the way that I would frame that if I am an investor is saying, like, look, John, I know you deal with buyer's agents quite frequently, or you might have picked that conversation, or that, let's just say the agent's neutral or says, yeah, they get annoying, they always call me. I go, look, John, I'll be honest with you. I'm ready to transact. The best thing about dealing with me, I'm not a buyer's agent. It's me and my partner. We're looking to buy. Look, I'm pre-approved. This is the brief. This is what we're doing. This is what we're after. Mate, if you send that property to me, I will come back to you in insert time frame period to let you know if that's something I'd be interested in for those off-market deals. Because at the end of the worst thing that you could do in that particular situation is to say that to the agent to send you one, and then you go, oh, it's not a good deal, and not reply. You need to give the agent the feedback when you do get that deal and say, hey, John, appreciate you sending this through. I've been able to review it, the DD. Now, look, as I mentioned, we're actually looking for a 3-bedroom on a 600 square meter block. This one's come in at 300 square meter block. It's just a little bit too small. So whilst I appreciate you sending through, it's not something I'd particularly like or consider. But look, still open, still looking, and still open, still looking, and let me know when the next one comes through. So you're upfront, you're honest, you're clean cut, you're fast. At the end of the day, and the next point as well is you need to be quick. One of the greatest lines that Scott Agate has ever said. He's a professional property negotiator. He's in our course too. He said that you must navigate the sales process as quickly as possible to negate the vendor time to think or to be interjected by any competition. What that means is you need to get through that sales process as quickly as possible, putting in offer accepted, cooling off, and all those sorts of things as quickly as possible, so that you don't give the vendor 2 weeks to think about something. You know what I mean? So I think you really need to, you need to be speed. You need to have, that transaction. You need to be locked and loaded so you can press on those pain points. Another thing as well is and how to win that is going to also be, and what I probably touched on there, is the speed in which you can transact. Look, John, I know you're dealing with buyer's agents. You know, they're calling, annoying you. Then they got to go back to the client. Then they've got a picky client. Then the client needs time to think about it. And the buyer's agent comes back to you. John, it's me, David. I'm the one that's going to be making the offer. I will be able to call you. You call me anytime, message me anytime. You send me something, I'll come back to you within the hour. I'll come back to you within 2-3 hours to let you know. If I communicate that quick and I come back to him in that agreed time frame, think of it from the agent's perspective. Okay, I've got a buyer's agent. I don't know when they're going to come back to me. They're a bit slow. Sometimes the clients have said yes. Sometimes the clients have said no. I've got Dave, on the other hand, that I've spoken to. He come back to me in an hour once I said that to him. He's made me that offer. This guy is ready to go. As an agent, your job is to sell that property. You just want... No agent wants to make things harder for themselves than they need to. Would I deal with the guy that I know is going to be, boom, straight through, cut through, giving that offer? Or am I waiting, days and if not weeks for a client and a buyer's agent to get back to me? Then I'm dialing in on those pain points as well to be able to further enforce that. Another thing to consider as well, it's not only regarding the buyer's agent, but for any offer that you do make to be able to win the house, is money is one thing, but terms is the other thing. A lot of people will win property, will be able to get things over the line based on the terms. So you need to be upfront, prepared and ready to be able to transact or give appropriate terms. How I discover this are the questions that I ask the agent during those initial phone calls, so that when I put through the offer, I can give very attractive terms because I know I can settle quick. I said it in a previous podcast a few days ago now, but end of year, we're getting up to end of year period, people wanting things done by the end of the year. So if you can come in and have those short settlements on that property, then you're giving yourself a really good opportunity to wrap things up by Christmas. And to a vendor that's trying to sell and have things sorted because they're already thinking about the holiday at the end of the year, you increase your chances of that getting accepted. And we haven't even looked at price. A lot of people, it might be 5 or 10 grand, but they know if they can get it settled before Christmas and their money in their account, that's going to give them a better holiday. And there's a bit of sentiment, there's a bit of emotion that you can tie into it around that. The next and the last thing that I think that you guys can do is having phenomenal market knowledge and be prepared. What do I mean by that? Preparation is as simple as knowing who is going to do the inspection of the property, knowing who is going to be the building and pest, who is that local person in the area that is doing the building pest, having a pre-approval in place ready to go, having your conveyancer and your solicitor briefed, understood of what's happening, understood that you're making offers so that there is no 2-3 week turnaround on a contract review, being like, hey, you're making on touching those points beforehand on all those items, on all those people. You're having that set up. So you say, hey, look, John, I'm actually getting DH Building and Pest just to come through. I've been in touch with them. I know they do a lot in the area. John goes, oh yeah, perfect. I've worked with them before. Look, I can get them in tomorrow if you're ready. I can get them guys in and through tomorrow. My conveyancer is also looking at the contract, and we'll be able to come back to you tomorrow with that offer. So having people set up, being absolutely prepared in that full process. You've got to think about what needs to happen before, what needs to happen during, what needs to happen after. Can I get prepared, ready, set up so that I can transact with speed to an agent that I have pressed on their pain points and spoken about, with terms that the vendor does like, on top of a relationship I've been building now for the last 2 months, in a warm spot where there is less competition. I think if you layer and stack all those things together, you not only increase your chances of being able to buy something off market, but also beating not only the buyer's agents, but also the other investors that you're going to see out there that haven't watched this video and haven't had that entire value stack put together. So as always, guys, I hope this helped. And for Vexus V8, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I've given you some value and some points that you can now run off to and implement in your personal property buying journey, so that you don't have to use a $25,000 buyer's agent that's going to overpay for that property, and then write a nice little status about it around, how they save their clients so much money, because there's direct comparisons down the road for, 50 grand more that you never see or hear about because they're fictional and fictitious. As always, guys, I really appreciate it. Let me know thoughts, emotions, queries in the comments. And as usual, I'll see you tomorrow.